Good morning. You are listening to the National Real Estate Auction Radio Show. I am your host, Doug Dennison, and we are broadcasting from beautiful St. Augustine, Florida, the nation's oldest city, at WFOY 1240 AM and WFOY 102.3 FM studios. Through the power of the Internet, this program is being streamed worldwide on 1023newsradio.com. Additionally, the show will be posted on YouTube.com. Our radio mission statement is to provide an educational experience for listeners in a promotional format for real estate auctions across the country. We're going to be talking about auctions and real estate, different real estate markets across the country. Let's go to our first caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. It's Rick Sharga.
Hey, Rick. How are you doing, sir? And thanks for getting up early and being on the show. I know you're in California, and that's 3 hours different, so thank you. For our listeners, tell us who you are, what you do, and where you're from, sir.
Well, I'm with a company called Auction.com. I'm an executive vice president there, and my job really is to help build awareness of the company and what it does. So this is a good opportunity for us. Auction.com is the largest online real estate platform in the country. Since we've gone online in 2007, the company sold over $20 billion of residential and commercial real estate. And really what we believe we're doing is democratizing the real estate process and giving buyers and sellers a better, more efficient, and completely transparent way to buy and sell real estate.
Well, you are a big force in the auction world. I was thrilled to be at the 5-Star Conference like you were, and the 5-Star Conference, of course, is one of the finest real estate and lending conferences across the country. Every year it comes to Dallas, and Ed Delgado and his great crew do a wonderful job. I got to speak about auctions there, and I know you were speaking. You were on radio shows. You were hosting. You were a big sponsor. You were everywhere. And so I got a chance a little bit to talk to you. Tell us a little bit about your background.
I'm a Pennsylvania native who's transplanted into Southern California. My family and I have been out here for about 17 years. I spent the first 20 years of my career doing technology marketing and building brands, which is something I've really enjoyed. I've worked for big companies like Hitachi and Fujitsu and Toshiba and Oracle and JD Edwards and for a whole bunch of technology startups that most people probably aren't familiar with. I started a little consulting practice where I was working with a lot of these technology startup companies and picked up a client called RealtyTrack, who at the time was a tiny little startup company trying to carve a niche out for itself in the foreclosure market. And wound up going to work for RealtyTrack and spent the next 8 years there, and it sort of became the voice of the foreclosure market, if you will, where I really got my start talking to people in the media. RealtyTrack published a monthly U.S. foreclosure report at a time when the foreclosure market exploded because of the housing market meltdown. And so for 8 years, I got to keep my finger on the pulse of what was going on in that part of the business. A little over 2 years ago, I was recruited by a company called Carrington Holding Company. And Carrington operates about 16 different businesses in the real estate and mortgage industries, everything from a hedge fund that invests in real estate to a mortgage origination and servicing business to a real estate brand with a couple thousand realtors across the country. And I really had the opportunity to try and help Carrington sort of relaunch its brand into the marketplace and talk a lot about mortgage industry issues and what was going on in Washington, the regulatory environment. And then, as I said a couple months ago, I was recruited away from them to try and help Auction.com become a more well-known national brand. And that's really the objective of what I'm trying to do, is to work with my contacts in the media and to work with the folks at Auction.com to try and get the message out that this is a new way for people to buy and sell real estate. We're using a very old process, the auction process, but in a completely different way than it's ever really been done in real estate. And it's entirely online, and it really leverages the power of the internet and the kind of excitement and efficiency of an auction process to let people to transact real estate this way. And we believe there's a huge opportunity because the market has shifted. We have an entire generation of buyers and sellers who really prefer to do everything online.
Right.
So this should be interesting times.
Well, talk about the market a little bit. I get a chance to say, once every couple of weeks that California and Florida is, we are the ones who really rise and go hard, very fast upward, and then when things go bad, we are the first to crash and burn. Tell us how California is doing right now in the real estate market.
Well, as you know, Doug, California and Florida are the only two states in the country that actually recognize real estate as a legitimate religion. So yeah, real estate's kind of a hot topic. I think during the peak of the boom, I'm not exaggerating here, I believe 1 out of 10 people in California with a job had a real estate-related job.
Really?
It was that big a part of the economy. California market is heating up pretty rapidly. We are. I believe we are in the midst of a real sustainable, organic housing market recovery.
Uh-huh.
And California has certainly been at the forefront of that, and that makes sense because California, as you pointed out, had also fallen the furthest from the peak to the trough.
Sure.
California, Florida, Arizona, Nevada really were the states that took the biggest hits because they'd been overpriced.
Yep.
So if you're looking at growth markets in terms of year-over-year price increases, it's hard to get much hotter than San Francisco and San Jose and Orange County, where I live, and L.A. County. Those markets have come back well over 20% year-over-year in most cases. The home prices going up, combined with the recent increases in mortgage rates, is slowing things down a little bit, and that's California and the rest of the country. But there are some markets in California where we've actually sort of crossed the threshold of affordability. In other words, it's we're on the wrong side of that line, where it's hard for somebody with a median income to afford a median-priced house. Excuse me.
Sure.
So but it's come back. The gating factor here in most states right now is whether there's enough inventory to go around for available buyers. I really believe what's going to hamper the market's comeback next year is that I think mortgage credit's going to tighten up a little bit further, and the combination of credit tightening and rates being more expensive is going to make it difficult for some people to get a loan.
Tell me a little bit more about auction.com. I know you do residential houses and condos, and I want you to talk about upcoming auctions soon, but do you do any other type of auctions in the...
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you asked that. I meant to bring it up earlier. We do all sorts of real estate-related auctions online. We do... trustee sales, which are actually the foreclosure auctions in states that don't do judicial foreclosures like Florida does. So in virtually every state that does non-judicial foreclosures, including neighboring states to Florida like Georgia, we have people who have taken those sales off the courthouse steps where you have that mysterious guy with the clipboard who seems to be talking to three of his closest friends. And we've moved them into traditional ballroom-style auctions where everybody can come in and bid. And what we've seen is we're actually getting some owner-occupant type bidders and a lot of individual investors. So that's been very gratifying to see. We're looking into ways to participate in those sales in states that do judicial foreclosure processes like Florida, but that's still in its infancy. We also do residential sales of bank-owned properties. We are starting to work with some of the mortgage servicers on helping them do short sales online. So for people looking for discount properties, those are two really good opportunities. We're starting to sell some non-distressed properties. That started with some of the investors who buy properties from us actually repackaging their own properties once they fix them up and selling them on the platform as well. So that's a growing part of the business. And the two kind of really interesting, at least to me, new ventures that we're involved in. One is commercial real estate. So we're selling, everything from strip malls and barber shops to $20 million light manufacturing or retail operations we're selling those across the country. And we're also starting to sell international properties. We've had 2 auctions this year in Germany. These are commercial properties for the most part, including multifamily dwellings for investors who are looking for rental units.
Mm-hmm.
And we have 2 or 3 other countries in Europe lined up that I can't talk about today, but probably can fill you in on the next time we talk.
Okay.
And these auctions are going on pretty much constantly, but we're excited about traditional real estate coming online. We're excited about the commercial business growing as fast as it has, and the international market, we think, really opens up investment opportunities for people literally across the world.
Have you considered doing loan auctions at all?
Oh, that's a great point. I completely forgot that. We're actually doing note sales online as well.
Wow.
So we're not doing that in a huge way, but we do have a capital markets group in New York. We'll be attending the ABS East Investment Conference in Miami next month, and specifically looking to work with large investors, institutional investors, and hedge funds who are interested in buying and selling the notes themselves. So, yeah, we're getting involved in that, too.
That's great.
We haven't yet begun auctioning off realtors, but we're talking about that.
I like your humor. That's great. Tell me about some upcoming auctions. I know you have many, and they're large quantities, and this is always interesting to my listeners. And again, my listeners are anyone from real estate agents to investors to real estate media, bankruptcy officials, banking officials, and the general public. So the general public and real estate agents and investors are real interested in what kind of auctions you've got coming up.
Well, anybody can go get a schedule of these auctions if you go to www.auction.com, and when you get to the homepage there, just click on the auction calendar, and we break it out. You can look at all types of auctions: residential, commercial, land, notes, residential notes and pools. But just to give you a couple ideas, since we were just talking about notes, we just wrapped up an auction that went on from September 9th through 11th for about $1.5 million worth of nationwide reperforming residential notes. And those are loans that had gone into default but have been fixed.
Right.
We have another auction like that coming up from October 8th through 10th for about the same size, for about $1.5 million, a single family performing notes in Atlanta. If you were looking at say residential properties, we have auctions going almost all the time. We had and this just takes almost too long to go through. But for example, wrapping up an auction today in Alabama on foreclosure and trustee properties. Another one in Missouri that wraps up on the 13th. North Carolina, Southern California. We have a nationwide residential auction. You can bid online on 1,256 properties that ends on September 15th.
Wow.
So really, people just need to check out the website and the dates and times of the specific properties and when they're available and so forth and so on, what the opening bid is, all available on the website, which is, again, www.auction.com.
Nice. When we got together in Dallas earlier this week, we briefly talked about government auctions and how government should use the auction process because it's the fairest and most transparent way to sell real estate. And we talked about briefly the post office that I always use as an example of a property that needs to sell, and the government, according to the GAO, has more than 14,000 government surplus properties that are costing the American taxpayer $1.6 billion a year in holding costs, and these aren't residential. These are offices and warehouses and pieces of land. And I think I sent you that Congressman Denham from California just was at the post office. It has been a new transaction. Donald Trump is going to have a hotel in this old post office building, and it was just news that came out on September 10th. But the good news, and it's an example that this property was costing the American taxpayer $6 million a year in holding costs, and now that holding cost is going to be taken off, and in fact, Donald Trump will be paying the U.S. government. So that's just one property, and I know you had thoughts on it. Great idea to get properties back into the mix rather than abandoned properties, and new jobs, new goods and services, and they actually pay taxes. So give me your thoughts on that, if you would, Rick.
You make a pretty compelling argument. It's hard to think that's a bad idea, isn't it?
True.
Yeah, what we're talking about here, interestingly, is just, one way of looking at it, it's another commercial sale.
Yeah.
And what we have found is that when you open these sales of commercial properties up to the broadest number of bidders, the math sort of takes over.
Yep.
More bidders typically equals higher bid prices. Higher bid prices returns more profit to the seller. So again, the equation's pretty simple. And for government properties that aren't being used and probably aren't going to be used anytime in the distant future, it makes a whole lot more sense to try and capture the revenue at a time when there's a market opportunity rather than to have the property sitting there vacant, messing up the local neighborhood.
Yes.
And costing taxpayers money. So it seems to make a lot of sense on paper, at least, to get these properties on the market, and perhaps we have a little bit of a bias here, but what we believe is, for these types of properties, the most effective way to move them, the best way to get the most return on the properties, is to use an auction. And again, I mentioned the international sales that we're doing.
Yep.
What the brokers have told us, what the commercial brokers have told us, is that they were dumbfounded at how many people from how many places were able to bid. Little properties in Germany, instead of having 10 people from the local market bid, we had 350 people from around the world making bids on these properties. Not surprisingly, the prices that were delivered were much higher than expected. So you could make the same argument for these kind of government properties. There are probably investors looking for all types of properties the government has available, and the investors aren't necessarily in the local market. They could be in in Idaho or Alabama or Florida or New York. And again, so to open up this process and to move these properties that are currently costing taxpayers money every year and turning them into a profitable enterprise just makes a whole lot of sense.
Well, I thank you for that, and again, I'm looking at a picture of Donald Trump and Congressman Denham from California and Ivanka Trump, and they're unveiling the new hotel for the old post office building. I just think that's a win-win. I think that's a huge victory for American taxpayers. I want to give kudos to the GSA for getting that done, and just that there's many properties like that, and every property, especially commercial, you leave it unattended and there's going to be problems. There's going to be vandalism. There can be a leak that, if it's not attended to, could cost maybe a couple $1,000s if you caught it right away, but tens and even hundreds of $1,000s if you don't catch it right away. And so the mantra is, get these properties sold, get them back to the private sector, let them pay taxes, let them make the property better. for the area businesses, the area community, and also let them pay taxes for the local communities. That's real important, because you and I both know that the government doesn't pay taxes, and so again, it's a win-win situation. I enjoyed meeting you, Rick. Give us how you can go to your website one more time and find out all about these great auctions.
Yeah, go to www.auction.com, and you'll see everything there from the types of properties that are available to when the auctions are scheduled. And there's a how-to guide that's right there on the website for people that are just exploring this for the first time, that explains how the process works and what the requirements are to participate. I want to thank you for having me, Doug, and for giving me the opportunity to talk to people about our company.
Well, great. It was nice meeting you in Dallas, and again, that's a fine real estate conference. They do a tremendous job. If it's a conference that you want to go to once a year, that's probably the one to go to if you're in the real estate or lending field. Rick, you have a great weekend. Again, thank you for getting up early, and take care.
My pleasure. Take care.
Bye-bye. All right, that was Rick Chaga, Executive Vice President of Auction.com from Irvine, California. I'm feeling good that we have had a victory as an American taxpayer in this week, and that is, and I'm going to start reading this to you. We'll get back to it because I'm not sure how much I'll get through, but it's September 10th, 2013. Denham joins Trump family for an unveiling of hotel in old post office building. It's again a picture of Representative Denham with Donald and Ivanka Trump. It says, use of old post office as Trump International Hotel saves taxpayers millions, creates jobs. Washington U.S. Representative Jeff Denham today joined Donald and Ivanka Trump at the architectural and design unveiling of Trump International Hotel, which will occupy the old post office building in downtown Washington, D.C., creating 700 construction jobs and 300 permanent jobs, according to the office of Washington, D.C. Mayor Vincent Gray. I mean, those are great numbers. This property is now going to create 700 construction jobs and 300 permanent jobs. Wow. As the chairman of the Subcommittee on Economic Development, Public Buildings, and Emergency Management in the 112th Congress, Congressman Denham has played an integral role in pushing the federal government to move forward with the redevelopment of the old post office in Washington, which until now has been losing more than $6 million annually. The building has housed federal offices, some retail and restaurants, but the annex has been empty and in disrepair despite the prominent location of the complex on Pennsylvania Avenue between the White House and the U.S. Capitol building. I am pleased to see Trump International's hotel's design unveiled today, said Representative Denham. This is one of the projects that has been important to me in my efforts to generate economic growth and streamline federal processes as the chairman of the Economic Development Subcommittee last Congress. I worked closely with the GSA on this project. We'll get more into this, but again, I'm doing cartwheels. It's a good thing. Again, kudos to the GSA for getting this done. This is a home run. Let's go for a break. All right, we are back. You're listening to the National Real Estate Auction Radio Show. We broadcast every Friday live from beautiful St. Augustine, Florida. We just had Rick Chaga, Executive Vice President of Auction.com from Irvine, California, talk about all the auctions they're doing. Go on their website, which is www.auction.com, to find out all about different sales in different states across the country. He even talked about maybe doing some international auctions soon, so that's great. They do residential, they do commercial, they do loans. You want to go to auction.com to find out what is happening on their website. We also talked about the government and the fact that one of the basically properties that I've been talking about for years the post office in Washington, D.C., which has been costing the American taxpayer $6 million a year for 10 years. That's $60 million that property has been costing the American taxpayer. Now it has been taken over by Donald Trump and making it into a hotel, retail center. This is a home run for the American taxpayer. And again, I just told you that they are going to create 700 construction jobs and 300 permanent jobs. So, again, a win-win. Very happy today in regards to that. And we've got a new caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Doug. Bob Pliska.
Hey, Bob. For our listeners, tell us again where you're from, who you are, and what do you do, sir?
My name is Bob Pliska. I'm with Sperry Van Ness, Property Investment Advisors here in Detroit, Michigan area. We buy, sell, lease, finance, and auction commercial real estate properties, both for owner-user purposes and investment purposes.
Well, Bob, you and I have been friends for a long time, and you have been instrumental in this, I think, change, as far as I'm concerned, this new exciting press release that I sent you yesterday that says Denham joins Trump family for unveiling of hotel and old post office building. You were one of the ones that I asked to write a letter for Congressman John Mica from Florida when he was down at a courthouse in Miami and trying to, along with Congressman Denham, he was trying to resurrect interest from the press and therefore the American taxpayers that there's buildings that are not being used that are costing the American taxpayer millions of dollars each year. In fact, the GAO, the General Accounting Offices, says that it cost the American taxpayer $1.6 billion a year on these abandoned properties that are being unused. And so I asked you to write a letter to Congressman John Mica saying the need for these properties to be sold, and who knows what the number is. The president said 14,000 a couple years ago, and these are not residential. These are commercial warehouses. They're office buildings. As you can see, there's a post office that just had a transaction, the courthouse, pieces of land. And you sent that letter, and along with myself and 8 other real estate VIPs, we got it into the congressional record. And I'm very proud of that, and I'm so happy that you were part of that, because you have a story to tell about abandoned properties and the need to sell them for the state of Michigan. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yes, this was a property for the state of Michigan that they had. It was basically an abandoned hospital that sat on 414 acres in the western suburbs of Detroit in a very good area, and it was costing the state approximately $500,000 a year in order to maintain this property. And with that, they tried to sell it several times to the normal approach of putting it on the market and selling it. And after 4 failed attempts, basically because of our auction group, we were able to sell that property for $31 million. And what that did, it provided, put this property back on the tax rolls to a good developer. I was by that property there yesterday, and there's a 100,000 square foot medical facility being built for the state of Michigan on the property. In addition, proposed is an 80,000 square foot shopping center, and I think a senior housing project could potentially maybe going on there, which in that sense also created, not only puts it on the tax rolls and saving $500,000 for the state in annual maintenance and security costs,
right.
It provided substantial construction jobs currently and permanent jobs down the road as these facilities are employed.
Well, it also must be such a boon to the area because, when you bring jobs to an area and you buy goods and services, it affects that area. It affects the real estate market, the value of properties, but also the gas stations, the Starbucks, all those kind of businesses that are in the area. So that was a great thing, but that was a difficult sale, and I know that you and I worked together on that. But tell the listening audience what kind of issues we had on dealing with that, because this was not an easy one.
Yeah, this is probably one of the most difficult sales around, because here you had a hospital on the property in addition to probably about 20, 25 different buildings that had asbestos in it. You had underground tunnels. You had a police shooting range on the north end of the property.
Yep.
You had oil wells. You had just a whole combination of factors that provided very difficult for us in order to put this property on the market and sell for the state, and that's probably why they were very unsuccessful in selling it by themselves. And basically because of the team that we were able to put together, obviously you were a part of that team, Lewis Fisher, a guy named John Johnson, David Gilmore. Our team was able to put this on the market and sell it for the state, and again, they were very happy that they were able to achieve not only reducing their current operating costs of $500,000 a year, but also obtaining $31.5 million in the sale price.
And the people are actually paying taxes for the local community. Isn't that a wonderful thing?
Yeah, actually paying taxes and providing a beautiful piece of property there,
Yes.
which was a downtrodden hospital that
Yep.
with a lot of buildings on it that weren't producing anything.
Vandalism, if I remember. I think there were underground tunnels that kids were getting into. A great liability for the state that no longer is an issue. So I want to say thank you so much for that. Tell us about the Detroit market. How are they doing?
Detroit market is doing very well. I mean, every time we turn around, they say again, obviously we're very based with the auto industry.
Right.
And the auto industry, month after month, seems to be increasing sales. I know August, I think it was one of the best sales months they've had in like 5 years or so. And as a result, the whole area is doing extremely well, not only the auto industry, but technology. The only negative impact we had is the city of Detroit had filed that bankruptcy, which creates a kind of a black image that is causing some issues. But when you look at it, it's just a situation where many of those people moved out to the suburbs over a 50-year period of time.
Sure.
And so as a result, you have a city that's probably only represents 700,000 people, which is about 15% of the entire metro area, which is around 4.5 million people. So the metro area is doing well. It's just a matter of getting through that bankruptcy situation, which is more of an actual city of Detroit issue, finance issue, rather than an actual economic issue of the entire area.
Well, what is happening on that? Of course, I'm very interested. We've done large bankruptcies before. I would think that would be one of the biggest ever. But what is happening? Are they meeting? Do they have deadlines? Do you know any of the particulars, Bob?
Well, just some of the particulars are this has an emergency financial manager has been put in place, and it's his job in order to correct the situation, look at the finances, and basically try to turn around the city, in which the state is very interested. And then we have a very pro-governor who has done, to me, extremely well for the time of office that he's been in. He has a CPA venture capital background and has basically restructured the tax situation for businesses in the state of Michigan, where we're now one of the better states to go forward on. We become a right-to-work state, which is allowing further other companies to come in, which were afraid of being forced to do a union.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, for example, right now he's in China, bringing in Japan, bringing future business to the Michigan market, which
wow.
I know in the last year and a half, 2 years, there's been like 24 Chinese companies come here, and we expect to have more just because of the enthusiasm that is created. Which also, getting back to your original question about the city of Detroit, which basically, it's just a matter of getting through that situation for the city itself, and then turning it around, because actually downtown Detroit right now is doing extremely well. We have an individual investor that has bought 24 pretty much office buildings in the city, and he's created all kinds of action activity. And the plus that he has is he's bringing his companies down there. He's connected about 40-some different companies in which he actually is part owner of, and is able to bring people down there. And,
I'm assuming you're talking about Dan Gilbert and Quicken Loans, is that?
Yeah, Dan Gilbert
okay.
is the individual, and he's with his, not only his Quicken Loans, but all his other companies that he's associated with. He's
sure.
able to bring some activity down there, which with the ballparks, the Tiger State, the Comerica Park, the Lions Stadium, and which is Ford Field, and now the potential of the new Red Wings stadium, which has created a whole vibrancy in that whole downtown area.
Well, I think that's great, and it's very risky for Mr. Gilbert, but I think he's trying to help the city as much as he can. So good for him, and if it works, he'll make a lot of money, and that's his job to make money. And you mentioned the Tigers and the ballparks, and we've had this conversation before, but I think that those sports teams, especially if they're doing well, bring a vibrancy to the city, which also can equate into money and upgrade in regards to real estate in the area and values. Tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, I guess to me, that's a very good thought. To me, with the Tigers, for example, doing extremely well, we have an owner of the Tigers who actually owns the Red Wings also, a guy named Mike Ilitch.
Okay.
And he's been able to bring some winning teams, especially the Red Wings, for example, in the last, 10, 15 years have been doing extremely well. And then the Tigers recently, we've acquired some really great players, and it's created a vibrancy in that downtown area where you get, especially when you have an individual like Dan Gilbert there, which brings a lot of the younger generation,
mm-hmm.
20s and the 30s, with a lot of the high-tech and mortgage business that he's involved with, and it creates a great atmosphere, a downtown atmosphere, which Detroit really lacked for many, many years. And as a result, you got, when the Tigers game is on, I mean, it's that whole downtown area has that whole vibrancy, which creates value and creates additional restaurants and reasons for being there. In fact, I think it's extremely difficult to find a place to live downtown right now.
Really?
Right. They've started creating a lot of multifamily, taking some of the office buildings, turning them into lofts in order to create additional places to live down there.
Nice. Well, my friend, I thank you once again for being on the show. How can people reach you? Because you are the man in Detroit as far as commercial real estate.
Yeah, Doug, my name is Robert Pliska, Pliska. I'm with Sperry Van Ness. My company is Sperry Van Ness Property Investment Advisors in Detroit. My phone number is 248-433-1400. My website is SVNPIA, that's Sperry Van Ness Property Investment Advisors, SVNPIA.com. And on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook, I'm at R.Pliska, R-P-L-I-S-K-A.
Bob, thank you for being on the call. You have a wonderful weekend. I appreciate you calling in.
Thanks again, Doug, and appreciate the opportunity.
Take care, Bob. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Doug. Brad Thomas.
Hey, Brad. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great today, thanks.
Brad, you are a return caller. You are on our show every week. And tell us again who you are and what do you do, sir?
Great. Thank you, Doug, for having me on the show today. I'm, again, Brad Thomas. I'm a writer for several different publications, most of which are online. Seeking Alpha, Forbes.com, the Street, as well as the Motley Fool. So that means, Doug, I write an article about every day.
Well, that's nice, and you are the REIT man. And tell us what REITs are. And you have a website called the Intelligent REIT Investor that brings in 500,000 people to your website. Tell us about the REITs and what's happening lately.
Sure. Thank you, Doug. Sure. REIT's acronym for Real Estate Investment Trusts. REITs were formed in about five decades ago in 1960. So REITs have been around a long time. And, of course, REITs real estate covers about every sector today, from apartments to hotels to industrial buildings to shopping centers to freestanding triple net properties. In fact, Doug, I'm in New York today, and yesterday I was speaking at a conference on the specific subsector known as the triple net sector. Mm-hmm. Again, this is all the single tenant properties. So I had 5 different REIT CEOs on my panel, companies that you may or may not be familiar with, like Stag Industrial, American Realty Capital Properties Trust, Gramercy Properties, Spirit Realty, as well as Cole Real Estate Investment Trust. All of those REIT CEOs were on my panel yesterday, so that was a really educational event. In fact, I've videoed that panel, and I'm going to share that with all of my newsletter subscribers next week.
Well, very good. And when we talk about your newsletter, I'm looking at your website, and I see Donald Trump and you in a picture together, and he's saying that you are the man as far as it comes to REITs, and that's why he is a REIT, intelligent REIT investor subscriber and has a newsletter. Tell us about your recent involvement with Donald Trump, because last time we talked last week, we were just getting into it in the end of the show, of course, and I just sent you an email yesterday about that Donald Trump was in Washington, D.C., kind of unveiling his new plans for the hotel with Congressman Dennison, and I know you were a little involved in that, so tell me a little bit if you would.
Absolutely, that was a lot of fun, and I was really amazed at the property. I know I think you're familiar with the property as well, and
yes,
actually flew up to Washington on Monday night and went up Tuesday morning to the unveiling.
Okay,
and went inside the post office, and actually I was just second, not on the first row with all the politicians, but I was just behind them.
Wow!
So it was really an educational day. This hotel is going to be converted, ironically, about the same time that the next president is strolling down the Pennsylvania Avenue for the inauguration. So
wow.
It's interesting. We see Donald Trump is inching closer and closer to the White House.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Brad, that's a good one. I am very interested, and of course, I spoke to our first 2 callers about the fact that this was a property that was costing the American taxpayers $6 million a year, every year for the last 10 years. And I'm just thrilled. I think it's a huge victory to the American taxpayer that an investor has come in and is made the transaction. So now, instead of costing the American taxpayer, there'll be monies coming in to the government and again, helping the American taxpayer. And, of course, when you've got the name of Donald Trump, you know it's going to be a great facility. It's going to be a world-class place to go to. And I'm just thrilled that you were involved in it, and I'm jealous. I wanted to be there too.
Well, I tell you, it is amazing. I mean, the Trump Organization, that was a very competitive opportunity, and they were the finalists, obviously, in that deal. And
right.
They're investing over $200 million in that property, and I got to meet some of the architects who were involved in that project. They're commencing it immediately, and these are going to be probably some of the nicest hotel rooms. Well, in fact, arguably, it'll be the nicest luxury hotel in Washington, D.C. It'll have larger rooms, over 600 square feet in each room.
Wow.
The amenities are unbelievable. I mean, the Trump, what I really like to I guess articulate here is that it's not just Trump that's doing this deal. It's the Trump brand.
Yes.
This is a brand, and I'm now starting to see how sustainable this brand is in terms of his global reach. I mean, he's in D.C. This is the 9th hotel that the Trump Organization is going to open. They've actually announced a 10th one in Canada, I believe in Vancouver. So, they're scaling this in densely populated markets in gateway cities like Washington, D.C. So it's definitely going to be a very complimentary piece to the Washington, D.C. landscape. And by the way, that hotel was going to be torn down actually on 2 different occasions. They had actually gotten very close to taking the bulldozers out to the site and tearing down that facility. So it is going to survive, and I believe it'll last a long, long time with the Trump Organization behind it.
Well, I'm sure it will, and I'm just thrilled that you were a part of it and so close to the action. I'm looking at the picture. I'm trying to see if you're behind Donald Trump on the corner there, but I can't see you. You must be in front of the picture. You had a great seminar and a panel. Can you give us some hints? I don't want to take it away from your subscription, but any thoughts on trends as far as REITs from these great VIP panelists?
Sure, and one of my I say this all the time. One of the most durable forms of education is self-education, and that's what Ben Graham always spoke about and wrote about. And so, I certainly have a lot of insight because I meet with these CEOs every day, and I speak with them every day. In fact, I've got an interview this afternoon with a guy named Nicholas Schorsch. Nicholas is the CEO of American Realty Capital Properties. He was at the event yesterday. This is a REIT that was IPO'd, I think, around 2 years ago. And again, this is a single-tenant REIT. So what we're seeing today in this particular subsector is, we've seen the volatility in the marketplace, and specifically in the REIT market. A lot of the REITs have really, sold off, or their prices have come down, especially these single-tenant triple-net REITs, Doug, because they look more like bonds, and just because they look like bonds, they've had the volatility that the bond market has. Again, this is all based upon or predicated upon the fear of rising interest rates. So I really believe this sector today specifically, Doug, is very attractive because the prices are really fairly valued today, given the fact that we've had the prices go down. And what that means is the dividends have increased. When shares of REITs go down, the dividends go up. So that's really, REITs are forced by law to pay out 90% of taxable income. So what we're seeing today are some very attractive dividends. Most of these triple net REITs pay, on average, between 5 to 6, even over 6% dividend yield. So it's a good time to be buying this particular sector today, and I've actually overweighted the triple net REITs in my portfolio because I believe it's a good time to be buying that particular group.
Well, then it's probably the time to get on the bandwagon, folks, and get the newsletter. And I'm going to read from Donald Trump. Brad Thomas has a multilingual approach to real estate. He has built it, brokered it, sold it, invested in it, researched it, and now he's telling it. Who can't learn from his experience? And that is why I consider the Intelligent REIT Investor to be a must-have newsletter. Donald Trump, Chairman, President, the Trump Organization. How did they get the newsletter? And we're running short on time, so give us the website and the information if you would.
Great. Well, Doug, it's hot off the press. The September edition just went out yesterday, so this is
nice,
real information. So it's the website. You can find it at www.thenintl, theintelligentreinvestor.com. Again, theintelligentreinvestor.com.
Brad, thank you so much for being on the show, and I never know where you're calling from, California, New York, Washington, D.C. Again, great job on being involved in this American taxpayer victory for the fact that that post office is going to be used. It's going to bring in, let me read it one more time because I'm so happy about it. The old post office building in downtown Washington, D.C. will create 700 construction jobs and 300 permanent jobs. That's a wonderful thing. Brad, you have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you so much. See you next week.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you for listening. We will see you next week.